Okay, we're up to the 1982-83 season. We're into the section of hockey history that I now can say, yeah, no, I remember that. And every team winner, or every division winner, has a minimum of 100 points and above. The Norris division is led by the Chicago Blackhawks at 47, 23, and 10, which was seen as miraculous at the time. The Minnesota North Stars 40, 24, and 16. The Toronto Maple Leafs third, but the record's 28, 40, and 12. And I remember this. I remember just how bad that division was. St. Louis 25, 40, and 15. And of course, it's around that year. I think it was actually a year before that St. Louis was looking at maybe going to Saskatoon. And if anybody's wondering, well, why didn't you do a video on that? I did. I did a video about a year ago on the St. Louis potentially moving to Saskatoon thing. Detroit 21, 44, and 15. And Detroit, it's bad. It's colossally bad. But we're almost up to the era of this Yzerman kid coming in and making things a little better. The Smythe division's led by Edmonton at 47, 21, and 12. But you know what's interesting? People didn't just talk about the Oilers and say, well, they're run and gun. And, that's never going to win a Stanley Cup, which was definitely part of the narrative. They also said they play in a bad division. That's why they got such a good record. Calgary was 32, 34, and 14. Vancouver was 30, 35, and 15. They were unable to follow up the Stanley Cup Finals run with anything inspiring. And Winnipeg was 33, 39, and 8. So their 500 days end at 1 year. And the LA Kings are last at 27, 41, and 12. So again, the only team that's 500 is Edmonton. Everybody else loses more games than they win. The Adams division is impressive. Boston 50, 20, and 10. That was a great run by Boston and Pete Peters. Pete Peters went on an amazing run. The Montreal Canadiens 42, 24, and 14. Not going away yet. Buffalo 38, 29, and 13 and fading. The Quebec Nordiques 34, 34, and 12. And there's your Hartford Whalers at 19, 54, and 7. That's not a fantastic record. Over in the Patrick, you've got 4 good teams and then 2 that are really bad. And they're going to get worse before they get better. Philadelphia 49, 23, and 8. The Islanders 42, 26, and 12. Washington Capitals 39, 25, and 16. The Rangers 35, 35, and 10. Then the newly moved New Jersey Devils, who've gone from Denver, where they couldn't win, and Kansas City, where they couldn't win. And now in New Jersey, they're continuing that tradition at 17, 49, and 14. The Pittsburgh Penguins are beneath them with an 18, 53, and 9 record. These two teams are looking ahead to 1984. There's a phenom coming up named Mario Lemieux, and they're both going to fight it out to see who could be the worst team in the league to get him. This was just bad management. 1983 was just bad management. It was awful all around, and the teams were really bad. But they will try to prove that they're worse than this next year for that Mario kid. September 9th, 1982. You'll notice in the 82-83 season, the Capitals get better. Rod Langway, Doug Jarvis, Brian Engblom are traded to the Capitals by the Montreal Canadiens for Ryan Walter and Rick Green. Now, Walter is going to go on to have a very solid career in Montreal. Rick Green, not a bad defenseman. But Langway, kind of special, and Engblom had been a number 2 or a second team All-Star. This is a trade that is made by David Poile in Washington. And Poile said at the time of this trade, we finally have a defense. The Washington Capitals have been a laughingstock for a long time, and David Poile's kind of had enough of it. And this trade, look where it puts them. They end up 3rd in the division that year. So it works. It works really well, and Langway has an amazing year. Also, that same day, Brian Murray, who's the coach of the Capitals, brings on his brother Terry as an assistant. And Terry Murray would go on to have a decent career as coach as well. So they looked remarkably alike. And I remember there were times where I'd have a hard time telling one for the other until they spoke. They spoke completely different, but they looked remarkably alike. April 2nd, 1983, Mike Bossy hits 60 goals, and he's the first person to do it 3 years in a row. So yes, Mike Bossy, one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of the game, right up there with Rocket, right up there with Gretzky, and with Ovechkin. and we can all debate all day about who the all-time greatest goal scorer is, but Mike Bossy's in the conversation, and if not for a bad back, he would probably be the number one goal scorer in NHL history. I think he would have played for a long time. Just his body gave out before his heart did. And on April 24th of 1983, the Islanders win their 14th straight series. So there's an argument to be had for the New York Islanders. They don't reach the 5 straight Stanley Cups that was set by the Montreal Canadiens. But the Montreal Canadiens, at the time they set that record, there was a 6-team league, and they only had to play 2 rounds. The Islanders, it's a 21-team league. They have to play 4 rounds. Their first 2 years with the Stanley Cup, they had to do so where they could have played anywhere on the continent in any given round. It's kind of crazy. So it's an impressive run, and winning 14 straight series is insane. That's 14 out of 19 straight series won by the New York Islanders. And after the Islanders' run is over, Denny Potvin's going to say that. He's going to say there's 19 series we won in a row. Nobody's ever going to reach that. And I agree. And this is the year of the number 1 draft pick belonging to the Minnesota North Stars, who use it on Brian Lawton. 483 games, 112 goals, 154 assists, 266 points. He ended up playing for the North Stars, the Rangers, the Whalers, the Nordiques, the Bruins, and the San Jose Sharks. So Brian Lawton moved around a lot. He is kind of a high profile. Yes, he was a flop compared to what people had expected, but it was also seen as kind of a weak draft at the time, so take it with a grain of salt. Your Hart Trophy winners, Wayne Gretzky. Your Art Ross winners, Wayne Gretzky. Your Norris Trophy goes to Rod Langway of the aforementioned Washington Capitals. The Calder goes to Steve Larmer of the surprising Blackhawks. The Selke goes to Bobby Clark. The Vezina goes to Pete Peters because he dominated. He was very, very good that year, and I've got a yearbook from 1983, which has him right on the cover. The Jennings went to Melanson and Smith of the New York Islanders. Rolly Melanson on the board. I like to see Rolly the goalie on the board. That means I'm doing something right. The Jack Adams Award goes to Orval Tessier of the Chicago Blackhawks. So again, you win this award to get fired later. Orval Tessier led the Hawks to a very unlikely run, which sadly doesn't go very far playoff-wise because Chicago is not in a good place with their playoff runs, but they do avoid getting into another 16-game losing streak. So there's that. The Masterton goes to Lanny McDonald of Calgary. The Lady Bing goes to Mike Bossy of the New York Islanders. The Lester Pearson Award goes to Wayne Gretzky of the New York Islanders, of the Edmonton Oilers. So I got the Islanders here and Oilers. Yeah, everything's Islanders and Oilers at this point. If you wear a blue jersey, this one, and you're doing pretty good. It's either Oilers or Islanders. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, oh, if you wear blue, you win, I guess. The Conn Smythe went to Billy Smith because he was crazy good in the playoffs. And the Patrick, which is for growing the game in the States, goes to Bill Torrey of the aforementioned New York Islanders. Your first team All-Stars for the year, Gretzky doesn't get first or second team, which is weird. It's really weird, and I did a double take when I saw it. Peter Stastny, Marion Stastny, the forgotten Stastny brother. We all remember Peter. I remember Anton very well, and Marion was my favorite because, of course, I have to be the one that likes the one that nobody else knows exists. But you could win some money saying how many times was Marion Stastny a first-team All-Star in the NHL. You're going to get an answer of who? Yeah, I'll take that bet. He didn't. And once. How? And then you'll have to show them. Ryan Walter is your first-line left winger. So Montreal did not come out of this trade looking really bad. It's just that they traded away the Norris Trophy winner in Rod Langway. The first-team defense, Denny Potvin and Mark Howe. And this is the first time where I've seen a first team that doesn't have the Norris Trophy winner on it. It's kind of weird. Pete Peters is the first-team goaltender. Second-team All-Stars, and this is where you can really win some money. You could say, hey, how many years were Marion Stastny and Barry Peterson on the All-Star team for the NHL at the end of the year? The NHL All-Star team, and people say, come on, Barry Peterson was never... Or throw in, how many times was Barry Peterson considered a better center than Wayne Gretzky at the end of a season? People are like, that never happened. You go, yeah, it did, 1983. Barry Peterson's on the board for the Bruins. So again, we're all going to remember that the trade of Cam Neely for Barry Peterson was this tremendously lopsided deal for Boston, and it was. But at the time, Barry Peterson was a guy who'd scored 76 points in that season, and he was a guy who'd scored over 100 points before, and honestly was a pretty solid center. It's just, it didn't work out for him in Vancouver, and then Neely turned out to be, well, Cam Neely. Right wing, Mike Bossy. Left wing, Michel Goulet. On the blue line, Rod Langway, Ray Bourque, and in goal, Pelle Lindbergh. And it's not the last time we're going to hear the name Pelle Lindbergh in this series, and he plays a huge role in Philly putting together some solid runs. In the playoffs, the division semifinals, Boston knocks out Quebec in 4. Buffalo sweeps Montreal. So we're definitely in an era where Montreal no longer has that mystique about them. And it's kind of worn off, and they're not going to get back into a Stanley Cup position until this Roy kid shows up that nobody knows exists yet. The Rangers sweep Philly, and the Islanders beat Washington in 4, setting up another matchup between the Rangers and the Islanders, which, if you're a Rangers fan, the Islanders are a bad matchup at this point. The Chicago Blackhawks beat St. Louis in 4. Minnesota beats Toronto in 4. So those are both series that are won 3-1. So Toronto is losing that air as a team that's hard to beat in the playoffs, because Harold Ballard is just not good at getting things done. The Vancouver Canucks lose to the Flames in the first round in 4. The Flames made it clear early in that series it wasn't happening again. Edmonton sweeps Winnipeg. So Winnipeg makes the playoffs, but Edmonton cast them aside. In the division finals, Buffalo loses to Boston in 7. So the Bruins managed to hold on and win that series in 7. The New York Islanders survive a bit of a scare from the Rangers, but they win it in 6. So again, 1940 chants are alive and well in New York. And Chicago beats Minnesota in 5. So the Minnesota North Stars try to get a run going, and Chicago squashes it. I remember that series. Edmonton beats Calgary in 5. So the Battle of Alberta, not much of a battle all the time. And we remember it as Battle of Alberta, and it was great. Calgary was nowhere near Edmonton at this point, other than they finished second. But you look at the points, they were nowhere near Edmonton. It was not close. The conference finals, the Islanders beat Boston in 6. So Boston pushes the Islanders, but the Islanders win it. And the Islanders have played a lot of hockey at this point. The Oilers squash Chicago in 4. So that sets up the Edmonton Oilers and the New York Islanders, which everybody was excited about until the series started. Edmonton loses in a shutout, 2-0 to the Islanders in Game 1. The Islanders in Edmonton win Game 2, 6-3. What happened was the Edmonton Oilers offense had been just kicking in just all cylinders. They were on this amazing run. And then they ran into a team in the finals that said no. And the New York Islanders were able to just absolutely shut it down. They shut the Oilers down in a way that nobody else had during the playoffs. And this team of destiny very quickly looked like not a team of destiny. The series then shifts back to New York, and in Nassau, the Islanders win 5-1 in Game 3 to go up 3-0. And we all knew it was over when it goes back to Nassau Coliseum, with the series already 2-0 for the Islanders. But in Game 4, it's a 4-2 win for the Islanders. There's no doubt. The Islanders win it in 4 straight. Your goals leader for the playoffs is Mike Bossy with 17. Your assist leader for the playoffs is Gretzky with 36. Your points leader is Gretzky again with 38. And your wins leaders, Billy Smith with 13 and Andy Moog with 11. So this is, again, this really great story gets going in the West, and the Islanders just say, we want our 4th straight cup. So the Islanders are the only American team to ever win 4 straight cups, and it's an impressive run in 1983. And it looks like it could continue in 84. And when you ask Islanders players who played which Islanders team they felt was the most impressive of the 4, they cite this one. This one looked around mid-season like they were down and out, and it probably wasn't going to work. And then all of a sudden they turned it on, and in the playoffs they went through everybody. But you notice There was a lot more sweeps going on in yesterday's video than there was in today's. The Islanders, the separation now between them and other teams in the league is diminishing. And tomorrow we'll see that again. But you know what? The Islanders had an amazing run, and this was 4 straight cups. Can't take anything away from them. And they took one of the most lethal teams in the history of the game, the Edmonton Oilers of 1983, and just shut them down in very impressive style. So if you get a chance to catch games from that series on NHL Network or any other network, or YouTube videos of those games, it's impressive. It's impressive how many really amazing Hall of Fame talents there are for Edmonton and how ineffective they were against the New York Islanders that year. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below as always, and hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I'll talk to you again soon.